All right. How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Gundam card game video here on Red Zone Rogue. Today, we're going to be covering the top 5 breakout meta decks of Set 2, or at least the early forerunners for the top meta decks. We have some returning favorites, depending on your opinion, as well as some newcomers. So yeah, we're going to be talking all about meta decks. What are the best decks in the Gundam card game Set 2 today? And if you're looking for some content about some off-meta decks, some rogue decks, maybe some, AUG decks or Titans or anything fun like that, stay tuned. We'll be covering those in the future as well. But today, it's all about the meta decks. Expect a lot of Amuro Ray and a lot of blockers, but we got some other really cool stuff too. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our overlay and check out the decks. All right, so let's kick it off by talking about what might just be the forerunner of the season, and that, of course, is the Green-White Wing Zero deck. Now, we're not going to spend too much time talking about this deck because, hey, I already have an entire deck tech video going over this deck, and honestly, not much of it has changed since the previous season. We got the addition of the Rick Diaz, so we have more blockers, but honestly, not much has changed. We also have the addition of the new Gundam heavy arms in this particular version of the deck, which I actually really like. I think this card's pretty cool, and I like that it actually links up with both of our pilots, with Hiro Yui and Chang Wu-Fei. And this is one that is just a 3/4 for 3. It's a level 4. 3 cost 3/4, links with any Operation Meteor pilot. It itself is Operation Meteor, and it has a deploy. You look at the top card of your deck, and you can put it back on the top or the bottom. So this card basically is in here to help, smooth out our draw and make sure we don't, brick early, or we can maybe make sure we do get, our big Wing Zero powerhouse here. Let's actually sort this by level so we can kind of get a little bit of a better idea how it's structured. So, the big difference between this version of the deck and the previous version is, hey, we're running just a crap load of blockers. That's not that much different. Basically, like I said, we are running the new Rick DS and we're running the new Heavy Arms. We're not running the Death Scythe in this particular version of the deck, though there are versions that do run Death Scythe, so you can do that. This one also runs the Shenlong Gundam, very much like the deck tech video that I made. This is my favorite version of the deck that also runs the Shenlong. It's really good against all of the blockers out there right now. So that makes a lot of sense. If you're going to be running up against mirror matches or against a lot of other blockers, Shenlong Gundam is actually fantastic at it, just blowing up any blocker that's level 3 or lower. And they're more juicy targets than ever. As we mentioned, we have the Rick Diaz, which is just a 3/3 blocker. We have the Lifrith, which has just kind of been a staple, 2/4 blocker. And then, of course, there's the Zawart, which is just a 3/2 blocker, all level 3 or lower, which is fantastic. This version is also running the Wing Gundam Bird mode. This is a card that I've seen some people cut. I actually cut this from my version of the deck as well. But this one has seen a lot of success, and this in particular has won some events. So this one, it's still a consideration. Your mileage may vary depending on your personal playstyle. And then for the non-unit cards, we have Chang Wu-Fei and Hiro Yui, as we mentioned. Hiro is fantastic and links with, most of the cards in our deck. We have the link with the new Heavy Arms, but as well as the Wing Gundam Zero and the Wing Gundam and the Bird mode. And then we have Chang Wu-Fei, which is pretty sweet. It says, during our turn when this unit has Breach, it can't receive battle damage from enemy units with 3 or less HP. And so we can slap that on our good old Shenlong Gundam and go to town. But he also links up with the Heavy Arms as well, in case we need to do that. And then for the commands, fairly simple. We have Overflowing Affection, nice little draw 2, discard 1, smooth out our hand and make sure we get the right cards that we need. Unforeseen Incident is a nice little gotcha card, nice combat trick, and it can turn the tide in your favor in a lot of really fun ways, and including some like gameplay videos that I published. We also have the Underground Desert Base. It's just a nice little 0/6 base. Great against aggro. Don't worry, we'll be talking about aggro next. And then finally, rounding it out, we have the Striker Pack, which is 3 more blockers. So yeah, this is just a pretty standard list, and one that you will likely be very familiar with. This is a deck that you need to know how it works in order to function in the Gundam card game metagame, right? You need to you're either going to be playing this deck or you need to know how to beat this deck. Because it's going to be out there, especially if you want to play at the top tables at like a highly competitive event. Next up, we have another deck that is a forerunner for one of the best decks in the game. I would guess that if you polled like 10 Gundam card game players, like competitive players, I bet 5 of them would say this deck, and the other 5 would say this deck for the best deck in the game right now. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think having multiple decks that are good. But by the way, the other 3 decks we're talking about today are also extremely powerful. But these 2 are kind of like the forerunners of the decks to beat, right? So this is your aggro deck, right? This is the Year War Aggro deck. It is very, very similar to the previous iteration of the Year War Aggro deck. In fact, we didn't really get too many new cards that are relevant. In this particular list, the only functionally new card, I mean, we're running the Hyzak here, but it's not that much more, it's not that different than like the Gem, for example, except for you can get this card a lot easier. Gem's the card that's in the starter deck, which is a little bit more difficult to get. You can get this one in just a booster set. We're also running the White Gundam, which is just another link for Char. So this is a level 3 2-cost 3/3. It's a Zeon unit and doesn't have any effect other than it links with Char Aznable. So Char is going to be one of the main cards in our deck. The way I like to think about this deck is you mulligan for Char. So we have so many cards in the deck that want Char. We have Char Zaku 2. We have the other Char Zaku 2. This one is the one that gives you a 3/1 when it dies. This is the one that lets you look at the top 3 and you get a card when it dies. This is just a 3/3. And then we also are running 2 copies of Char's Gelgoog. This is more or less the top end of our deck with the Gelgoog, the Anksha, and the RX-78-2 Gundam. And we don't want to run too many of these. It's not that great without Char, but it's very, very good with Char, of course. And the way this deck functions, if you didn't know, is we have a ton of cheap, low-to-the-ground units, and we just jam these dudes as early and as fast as possible, and we turn them sideways, and we want to destroy our opponent as fast as possible. The Zaku 2, that gets +2 when it attacks, is great at destroying your opponent's EX base, and so your other dudes can kind of crash in and get at the shields. We have the Gun Tank, which helps do a little bit of chip damage to units, which is fantastic, killing any, X1s or, adding up to finish off other units. The Anksha can also help with that. Does an additional 1 point of damage. Doesn't link or have any other effects like that, but it still helps us get that chip damage in, and it's also like a nice little 3/3. And then we have our big powerhouse, the RX-78-2 Gundam. This is, if you didn't know, this is one of the best cards in the game. This is the starter deck Gundam from starter deck 1, level 4 3 cost 3/4, links with Amuro Ray. It has repair 2, and then during your turn, all of your units gets +1 AP, which is really good when we have all these little low to the ground doofuses. That +1 AP can actually help quite a bit. And then rounding out the deck, we have our 4 Char Aznables. As always, when Char attacks, the unit gets +1 AP, and if it's a link, it gains high maneuver, which makes it unblockable. So this gives us resiliency versus all of the other, all of the blocker decks out there. And we have so many links with Char, it's crazy. And then of course we have Amuro Ray, which is also good about getting around blockers, but also good at like killing off key things, because when you pair Amuro, you choose an enemy unit with 5 or less HP and you rest it. So you can rest any of those Rick Dias or Lifrits or anything like that, so you can kind of get through them. In fact, you can even rest some of the bigger blockers like the Ailstrike Gundam. So that's just on pair. It doesn't have to be a link with the RX-72. It's better when it's a link with the RX-72, but yeah, quite good. And then rounding the deck out, we have just a single Show of Resolve, a nice little draw 2 late game. You can, add another copy of this if you want, maybe cut something out of here and add another of this if you feel like you need it. And then, of course, our base is the Corsica base. Super efficient. Just gives us more dudes when we deploy it, which is exactly what we want. Yeah, that's the Year War deck. Now, these 2 decks, the Wing Zero, green-white Wing Zero, and the blue-green Year War, these are decks from the previous season. These are decks that we know are very good. Let's talk about some, new decks. So this is one of the new breakout decks of set 2. This is the purple-blue deck. This is a aggressive early game into the mid game style deck. We do have a little bit of a top end here with level 6 and level 5. This is my personal favorite version of this deck. This is the deck that I'm building in paper, or this version of this that I'm building in paper. And we'll talk more about this than the other 2 decks, because I feel like this one's a little bit of a, it's a newer thing. We have some, recurring things that we saw in the previous decks, like the gun tank here, just a super efficient low to the ground unit that also can help pick off whatever we need to be, picking off. We have stuff like the Hyzak. Once again, you can replace this with any level 2 1 cost 2/2, right? There's other blue ones to pick from. You can pick the gem or whatever. This is just like the most affordable option. We're also running the Gray's Custom, literally just another level 2 1 cost 2/2. And so between all of these, we have 12 1-drops, level 2 1-drops. So we do have that early game power. It does make this deck a lot weaker as we get into the mid and late game, because if you're in top deck mode and you top deck one of these 2/2s, that's real bad. That sucks. But the idea is that we are so aggressive and we have so much advantage early that we can overcome that disadvantage. We're running also another one of the big breakouts of set 2, the Gundam Barbatos First Form. This is the LR version, level 3, 2 cost 3/2. And then when it attacks, if it's damaged, you get a draw card. It also links with Mikazuki. Now, this card, it's an LR, but a lot of people, I've seen a lot of criticism about this card, and the criticism boils down to, I keep saying criticism weirdly, it boils down to dies to removal. Yeah, sure it does. But it's also a level 3 2 cost card. It is not the same as our 4th form Barbatos or our Gujin Rebake. This is something that comes down on level 2 or level 3, depending on if you have the EX resource. And next turn, you can jam out the Ryuze Go and then draw a card from this. You don't have to link Mikazuki to get that card draw. You can play Mikazuki to deal it 1 damage and then get the card draw, but you don't necessarily have to link it on, link Mikazuki on it. By the way, Mikazuki, great card, really important part of this deck. Level 4 1 cost pilot, +2/+1, and when you pair it, you deal 1 damage to one of your own units and 1 damage to one of your opponent's units. And that 1 damage, once again, can stack up with stuff like Gun Tank, as well as the Anksha and the Gujin Rebake. So you have a lot of little incidental, like single target damage here. But Mikazuki is really great at just doing 1 damage to our Barbatoses to get some good advantage. So yeah, optimal play here is you just drop this dude on your turn 3 or turn 2, and then the next turn you play the Ryuze Go Gray's Custom. And so what this is, it is a level 3 2 cost 2/2, and on deploy you choose one of your own units and you deal 1 damage to it, and if you do, you draw a card and then discard a card. So you get a nice little filter from it. And it also links with Tekkadan trait, so that does link with Mikazuki, which is fantastic. We're also running the good old RX-782 Gundam and Amuro Ray, because they're just kind of some of the best things you could be doing in the Gundam card game. We talked about this a lot in the previous deck, but yeah, it's just super efficient, pumps up all of our dudes, and Amuro Ray himself can rest something down so we can attack into it, or shoot it for cards that care about rested units. So yeah, really, really good. Yeah, and also just self-heals. It's just super solid. We're also running the Anksha, another little incidental bit of damage. The Gujin Rebake, I think, is really, really strong, by the way. I think this is one of the reasons why the deck works so well. So the Gujin Rebake is a 3/5, which is quite big for a level 5 4 cost. It has blocker. It's the only blocker in our deck. And on deploy, you choose one of our units and an enemy unit and deal 1 damage to each of them. So it's the same kind of effect as Mikazuki. Now, we're not running Akihiro, I'm sorry. We're not running Akihiro, so we don't get that link, but we still have a really nice play, right? And then, of course, we're topping it off with the starter deck, LR Gundam Barbatos First Form, a level 6 4 cost 4/5. On deploy, choose one of our units, deal 1 damage to it, and then it gets +1 AP during the turn, which is pretty sweet. And then when it's damaged, when this unit is damaged, it gets suppression. And we have a lot of different ways to deal damage to our own units between the Ryuze Go, the Gujin, and Mikazuki himself. So we can kind of get that suppression to get in the last couple of bits of damage. We're talking about the pilots. We were talking about Corsica base in the previous deck. Once again, just a super efficient base that gives us more units. And we're like I said, an early game aggressive, aggro to sort of mid-rangey style deck. We're also running the Argama, the Nahel Argama. This is one that also gives us rest potential. So this is level 3 2 cost 0/5 base. And then on deploy, you get a shield to your hand. Then you choose one enemy with 3 or less HP and you rest it, which is pretty solid for resting some of those pesky blockers, the Rick Diaz, the Zawart, anything else that they have. And then you can also shoot them down after they're rested with stuff like the Gun Tank or the Anksha, which is pretty good. We're also running some more short resolves. Hey, we want to, be fairly aggressive, dump a lot of cards out, and this helps refuel our hand. I wouldn't blame you if you felt like these were a little bit too redundant and wanted to put more of these in it, but I know a lot of people like their vanilla bears in this game. I like the card draw, but I skew more mid-range and control. And then, of course, we're running two copies of Fatal Strike, another starter deck card. Nice little card. Level 4, 2 cost. Command on burst, you get to choose an enemy unit and do 1 damage to it, which is pretty good. And then on your main phase, you choose an enemy unit that's level 3 or lower, and you destroy it. Once again, lots of level 3 or lower stuff running around with all the blockers. And so, yeah, that's the blue-purple deck. It's a nice, different flavor of an aggressive style deck in the Gundam card game, and I think it is quite strong and definitely worth trying out. Next up, we have more blockers and more blue, but a little bit of a different flavor because this one is the Epyon deck. Let me go ahead and sort this by level. Now, once again, we have the blockers package. This is really good. You're going to see it in the meta. Know the blocker package. Lifrith, Rick DS, Zawart. You got to know these cards, and you got to know how to play around them, and you got to be prepared for them. It's why stuff like the Shenlong is so good, and why stuff that rests these type of units is great, so you can either rest them down to do damage or rest them down to kill them. So yeah, we're running 4 of each. That's what we're doing. We're a control deck, running white, we're running 4 of each. We're also running, you guessed it, Amuro Ray. We have Amuro Ray and the RX-78-2 Gundam. Once again, staples at this point. And I feel like a broken record at this point, but hey, as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you want to see some rogue decks or some other cool and interesting stuff, stay tuned for future videos. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about meta decks, and this is meta. The Gundam meta, literally, here you go. Blockers, Amuro Ray, RX-78-2. This is a huge, huge part of the meta. Not the entirety, but a huge part of it. And so, everything that I said in the previous decks that we talked about today are true for this one. If you just skipped ahead and went to here, the cliff notes are, hey, look, this is really good. It's super efficient and pumps your squad. It's actually really good in pumping our little blockers to make them more, powerful threats. And then Amuro Ray does a great job of resting enemy units so we can kill them. So just a nice little combo here. We're also running another blocker. We're running the Launcher Strike Gundam, which is a 3/4 blocker. We don't link in this deck. We're not running Kira Yamato or anything like that. So just another blocker. It's just a 3/4 blocker, a little bit bigger than the other ones. All right, let's talk about the interesting stuff now. So we are running the new Tallgeese and the Epyon at 4 of each. Now, if you watched my 6 deck video when the set was just coming out, I kind of theory crafted a deck similar to this. My deck is a little bit crazier because my decks tend to be a little bit crazier. I ran Soletta Mercury and more of a command package with the aerial rebuild, which I think is still good and fun. This version goes more heavy blockers, Amuro Ray, more typical stuff. But the top end is still the same with the Epyon here. So the Epyon is a great finisher. It's a level 8, 7 cost, 6/6, links with Zex Marquise, and then during link, once per turn, during our turn, when one of our units destroys an enemy unit with battle damage, you set this unit as active, which is great. So this can get basically 2 attacks if we kill an enemy unit. Now, a big part of that is Zex Marquise himself. Zex Marquise is a level 5 1 cost 2/1 pilot. During link, during your turn, when this unit destroys an enemy unit with battle damage, you get to draw a card. So if you want, you can actually smash in with Epyon, get 2 attacks in, kill 2 things, and draw 2 cards, which is pretty solid. Or you can kill a thing, draw a card, then attack shields. You can kind of mix and match whatever is more suitable to the occasion here. We also have another link for Zex Marquise with the Tallgeese. This is the new Tallgeese, level 4, 3 cost, 3/4, good stats. And then when you are linked up with Zex and on attack, you can choose an enemy unit with 2 or less HP and rest it, which is a pretty solid effect. Zex gives the +2/+1, so this makes it a 5/5 that you get to do an arrest on attack. So it's kind of like a little mini Unicorn Gundam kind of thing. It's a good effect. Not quite as good as getting the Epyon online, but hey, Epyon is a level 8 card, so and yeah, that's kind of like the core function of the deck. We want to play our blockers, protect our life as much as we can, and then we finish out the game late with the Gundam Epyon. We also have more of your staple white cards. You got Overflowing Affection for the nice draw 2, discard 1 to kind of smooth out your hand. We have 2 copies of Show Resolve to just, draw more cards as we get into the late game. We're running 4 copies of Striker Pack, more blockers, great burst, just a nice card. A lot of white decks are running this now. and the Unforeseen Incident. So once again, a lot of staples as you see here. These are cards you will all see in all your decks. You should pick these up if you want to play these colors in the Gundam card game. Now the base here is a little bit different, and I really like this base for this deck. This is the Dominion. It's a level 4 1 cost 0/5 base. On deploy, you add one of your shields to your hand, and you choose a friendly blue unit, and it heals 2, which is fantastic. Really, really good for the Epyon, which is going to be smashing into stuff and taking a lot of damage. It's a 6/6. When you link it up with Zex, it is an 8/7, but it's still going to take some damage here. So healing it 2 off of your base is pretty sweet. You can also heal your Tall Geese or your Gundam if you really need to, even though it already has repair. So this is a cool deck. This is more on the control side of things, but it does employ a strategy that is very common and very well known in the Gundam card game. And the final deck we're going to talk about today is a deck that I already featured on the channel. This is a red-white variant that I really, really like. Out of all of the decks here, this is my favorite deck. And if you want the full breakdown, I have a full like 20-minute video talking about this, talking about all the cards and all the effects and everything. But the TLDR, I'll have a link in the description too. But the TLDR for this deck is that we have blockers. Once again, hey look, here's blockers. We're running white for blockers. We have the 3 striker packs. We have all of the early game blockers here. We're also running the L-Strike Gundam as well, so we have a ton of blockers. But this deck aims to finish out the game with big red mechs. So we have the Kshatriya, the Sananju, and the Kubile, which, if you didn't know, those are my favorite mechs in the game. I absolutely love these cards. We also have my favorite pilots in the game, Marita Cruz, Hamon Karn, and Full Frontal. Marita and Hamon are just great at dealing extra points of damage, and Full Frontal in this list is just a big 2/2 body that also synergizes with our mechs and links up with the Sananju. We have our Ralula, which does damage. We also have our Close Combat, which does damage, and we're running a full 4 of all range attack, which does damage to all of our enemy units that aren't link units. Doubling up this card on turn 4 is really, really strong. Just dealing 2 damage to your whole, like all of your opponent's stuff is really, really good. And it's very good against those aggressive decks, right? If they're playing all those little Zakus and stuff, and you manage to drop like a Zawart on turn 2, and then on turn 3, you drop like a Rick DS or a Lifrith, making their life a little bit of pain in the butt. And then on turn 4, you just wipe their board, and then they lose because they have nothing. So yeah, it's quite strong against the aggro decks. And then everything also is burst. All of our non-units are burst. We have the pilots that burst into our hand. We have the Ralula, obviously is a base burst, but it also does the damage. We have the 2 damage bursts from the close combat and the all range, and we have the blocker burst. So I like this deck quite a bit. Out of these decks, it is my favorite deck. It's not my favorite deck in the game. My favorite deck in the game is a deck similar to this, but it uses blue instead of white. It's the blue-red version. We'll do a full deck tech on that in paper. But yeah, these are the 5 of the top decks in the Gundam card game right now. Some of these are pretty, obvious, and some of them are some new decks. And as we can see, we have certain strategies and certain cards that keep coming up in these lists, right? We have the RX-72 Gundam, we have the blocker package. These are just common things that we have in the Gundam card game now. Hopefully, as the game evolves and progresses, things are going to change. We're going to get some more staples, but we're only 2 sets in. And as I mentioned, actually, let's go back to me. Oh, hello. Yes, as I mentioned, if you want to see more Rogue decks, more fun decks, stay tuned for more videos here on Red Zone Rogue, as we're going to be covering, Titans lists, that blue-red deck that I mentioned. I still am trying to make like an age deck, like a green age deck work. I know people have requested that. We're going to do that. And yeah, I just love this game. I think it's super fun. I love deck building for it. These are some of the best decks, but I think there's more decks to be played that are also fun that I think still have a shot. Maybe not the best shot, but they still have a shot that you can bring them to your locals, play with your friends, and have a lot of fun. So that's going to be that for our Gundam card game video today. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It genuinely really helps, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, see you next time.